The heroine is truly exceptional. Ever since she gained to companions last time, she has been somewhat puzzled. Consequently, she invited Roko and Label to a secluded location to question why they wanted to become her partners. Upon hearing her question, Roko explained her reasons. She has long disliked the king and appreciated that the heroine genuinely listened to her singing, prompting her decision to defect. Moreover, the heroine's team doesn't appear very strong. Officially, the heroine is rated at 2 stars, while Ki-woo is at 0 stars. Currently, only Guli Su is visibly a 3-star, while the king has 4 hearts, and the nun has 3 stars. Therefore, Roko intends to help the heroine confront the king. However, the heroine isn't overly concerned about this matter. At the moment, she is more curious about whether the king's statement about hunting magical girls is true. Roko confirms it and complains that those magical girls were too weak, easily defeated by them. Hearing this, the heroine smiles, then returns the transformation tools to Roko and Label. After they transform, 4 panels appear, trapping them in a pristine white space. Despite their defection, the heroine cannot forgive them for hunting magical girls, her most admired idols, now targeted by an evil organization. This angers her, and she decides they must be severely punished to understand the consequences of hunting magical girls. The heroine demands they perform impressively. If they fail to satisfy her expectations, neither will be allowed to leave the space. Now, Roko and Label are speechless, having escaped the king only to fall into another predicament. Meanwhile, Ki-woo and Guli Su, distracted by the heroine, are elsewhere. Ki-woo is irritated with a model, frustrated about why it needs to be separated, while Guli Su sighs over Ki-woo's intelligence. Then, Zhao Hai arrives, querying Ki-woo about her perspective on the previous 2 battles. Given Ki-woo's poor performance, looking like a liability, Zhao Hai feels compelled to caution her, which irritates Ki-woo. On another front, the heroine is joyfully punishing Roko and Label. During her reprimand, the 2 openly share their feelings, suddenly causing a blossom of love. The heroine then deactivates the white space, allowing the 2 love-struck girls to exit. She is extremely pleased with herself. At the base, the king, aware of Roko and Label's defection, remains unconcerned. With her and the nun, she believes they are sufficient. The king leads a large force to attack human cities, aiming to reintroduce humans to the fear of villain dominance. The heroine, arriving just in time, transforms to save the world. The monsters, created by the king, empower her to effectively conquer the world without defeating the king. These monsters possess immortal abilities, capable of regenerating even after being severely damaged. Meanwhile, the nun joins the battle, transforming into a giant and raising her fist, intending to crush the heroine and her allies. Unexpectedly, Ki-woo draws a gun aimed at the nun. After freeing herself, Ki-woo instructs the heroine to handle the king while she confronts the nun. Once the heroine departs, Ki-woo directs Guli Su and Roko to deal with minor monsters, opting to face the nun herself. Despite concerns over her 0-star status, Ki-woo reassures them of her confidence in victory, engaging in a fierce fight with the nun, clearly outmatched. Ki-woo is harshly beaten by the nun, who uses the gentlest voice for the harshest actions. Once enough distance is created, Ki-woo activates a hidden energy source on her back, revealing that she is also a 3-star player. The heroine, now at the base, is ready to confront the king. As the heroine was battling the king, Ki-woo unleashed her true strength, launching a ferocious assault on the nun that left her terrified. The nun thought Ki-woo could maintain her leopard armor form indefinitely, which would have left her at a disadvantage. However, Ki-woo suddenly spat blood the next moment, revealing that she couldn't sustain her powers for long due to insufficient magical control. This caused her immense physical strain when operating at full capacity, essentially making it a race against death. If she couldn't quickly defeat the nun, her defeat was inevitable. Despite this, Ki-woo was undeterred, focusing solely on defeating the nun and then planning to book a hotel room with the heroine. She believed that only by being close to the heroine could she experience true happiness. The nun, confused by Ki-woo's logic, seized the opportunity to severely beat her. Ki-woo's body reached its limit, and her attacks failed to hit the nun, who mocked her mercilessly. Just as the nun was about to strike the final blow, the ground collapsed under her weight, trapping her massive form and preventing her from moving. This caused the nun to panic. Initially, Ki-woo's leopard armor was quite formidable, and now, with the nun unable to defend herself, a single shot from Ki-woo's cannon would have been lethal. Ki-woo, looking extremely cool, used her cannon to scare scare the nun into tears. Ultimately, as the countdown ended, the nun fainted from fear, securing Ki-woo's victory, though she was also gravely injured. Meanwhile, Roko and Label encountered difficulties as Guli-su collapsed from exhaustion, allowing the king's monsters to escape the confinement of the Black Room and attack them. Roko and Label were reverted to their original forms. In a critical moment, the red, blue, and yellow magical girls arrived just in time to rescue them. The blue-haired girl activated her true form and purified all of the king's monsters with a single move. On the other front, the heroine was engaged in a fierce battle with the king, finding herself at a disadvantage and immobilized by the king's monsters. The king, preoccupied with expounding her grand ideals, was oblivious to the heroine's boredom. The heroine found the king's demeanor tedious. She might have been excited by the prospect of bullying other girls, but she found the Chunabu king utterly uninteresting. Nonetheless, determined to defeat the king, the heroine activated her strongest filter, envisioning the king as a little girl, which thrilled her immensely. She then activated her full star mode. Looking incredibly cool and invincible, the king was left hanging and beaten without any chance to resist. At this moment, Roko and Ki-woo, along with others, arrived at the base to help the heroine defeat the king. They were shocked to see the once dominant king now being bullied by the heroine as if she were just a little girl needing discipline. Calmly, the heroine continued to punish the king until she cried and pleaded for help, promising to forget all past misdeeds if rescued. Roko and Label, however, refused. They did not wish to be on the receiving end of the heroine's wrath. Under the heroine's relentless punishment, the king was reduced to tears and eventually acknowledged her errors, apologizing to the heroine. After hearing the king's concession, the heroine reverted to her original form and declared their victory, while the king secretly fled. She ran into Zhao Hai, who revealed that he had orchestrated the entire battle. The heroine and Ki-woo had developed their powers independently, whereas the king's powers were supplied by Zhao Hai. Realizing she had been manipulated, the king was enraged and attempted to confront Zhao Hai, but the nun, also a spy, quickly apprehended her and dealt with her quietly. The heroine caught up but found neither the king nor the nun, only Zhao Hai, the mastermind. Zhao Hai commended their performance and asked what rewards they desired. Ki-woo immediately requested to book a room with the heroine to be close to her, to which Zhao Hai agreed without hesitation. As for the heroine, she found herself unexpectedly appointed as the commander of the evil organization, leaving her somewhat bewildered. After the intense battle with the king, the city streets were severely damaged. Zhao Bai summoned dolls to help transport materials, then took the three magical girls to start the repairs. Meanwhile, Zhao Hai convened everyone for a meeting. The heroine, acting as the commander, was notably dispirited, imagining the king as a child had drained her mentally, and she hadn't recovered yet. Deep down, she was worried about feeling empty without magical girls to train in the future. Although Zhao Hai intended to discuss future battle plans, the heroine's current state made it difficult. The heroine's concerns grew when she worried she might have been too harsh on Zhao Lan previously, fearing it could have caused long-lasting harm. However, when Roko and Label suddenly reported seeing Zhao Lan, the heroine's spirits lifted instantly, even causing her to drool. Roko mentioned that they should keep an eye on Zhao Lan, who had single-handedly defeated all of the king's monsters in a transformed state they had never seen before. Motivated to see this for herself and hoping to rejuvenate her spirit, the heroine decided to visit the site where the magical girls were repairing the streets. Zhao Hai informed her of their location, prompting the heroine to immediately set out, leaving her transformation tools with Zhao Hai to maintain her anonymity. Upon seeing the site and noticing the dolls struggling with their tasks, the heroine felt a pang of heartache and volunteered to help with the street repairs. Zhao Lan saw her doing this and simply greeted the heroine, who was so thrilled that she began bleeding from her nose. She finally shook hands with her idol, her tears flowing uncontrollably, wishing she could preserve her hand forever. During her conversation with Zhao Lan, the heroine learned that Zhao Lan hadn't been subdued and that there would still be opportunities to train magical girls in the future. After a full day of work, the streets were restored to their original condition. Zhao Lan stretched and prepared to go back early to rest. But the heroine didn't stop there. She offered to give Zhao Lan a massage to relieve her fatigue, marking the first time she touched a magical girl's body without transforming. It started normally, but soon the heroine couldn't suppress her desires and began to behave inappropriately, lifting Zhao Lan's skirt. This behavior was almost catastrophic for Zhao Lan's dignity, but fortunately, the heroine quickly regained her composure before Zhao Lan could react. The heroine apologized and hurriedly left the scene. It was fortunate that she hadn't brought her transformation tools. Otherwise, her identity as an evil commander might have been exposed. Upon returning to the organization's headquarters, the heroine quickly gathered everyone to draft future conquest plans. They would continue to battle the magical girls, so everyone needed to be fully prepared. They would strategically torment their opponents and choose the right moments to retreat, fulfilling their villainous roles. Later, the heroine, along with Qi Wu and Gu Li Su, visited a toy store so Gu Li Su could pick a doll as compensation for one damage during the battle with the king. While Gu Li Su was selecting a doll, Yang Hong greeted them from behind, accompanied by 3 children. Yang Hong explained that they were her sisters. Qi Wu also returned with a doll she had chosen. Everyone was somewhat taken aback by the situation, but the 3 children found it very cool. Thus, Gu Li Su played with the children and her doll. Watching this, Yang Hong wished aloud that every day could be as joyful and peaceful as today. They soon waved goodbye, but as the heroine turned around, she noticed Gu Li Su had transformed automatically. Predictably, the monster doll in her hands grew larger. The heroine and Qi Wu were too late to intervene. Gu Li Su was too excited to stop, and soon the magical girls arrived. Drawn by the scent, the heroine immediately made an inappropriate face. But before the 3 magical girls could act, Gu Li Su appeared behind Yang Hong and threw a transformation tool at her. In the next second, Yang Hong grew enormous, and her undergarments were exposed to the bystanders below. Just then, a monster charged at her. No longer embarrassed, Yang Hong quickly retaliated against the monster. The heroine and Qi Wu, concerned for Gu Li Su's safety, decided to help. Yang Hong was caught off guard, and her head was soon caught in the monster's mouth. Hearing cheers from her sisters in the distance, she regained her senses and escaped the predicament. Zhao Lan and Zhao Huang also rushed into her clothes to assist, but they ended up causing more harm, even tearing her undergarments. Despite being defeated by the magical girls, the heroine and her companions felt exhilarated by the battle process.